We'll call the meeting to order at 8:31. If I could have a roll call, please, Joy.
Member Pachowski.
Here.
Vice Chair Chaplin.
Here.
Member Hart. Member LaPlante.
Here.
Member Chavez.
Here.
And Chair Rutledge.
Here. And since we do have a few that are virtual, pursuant to the Illinois Attorney General's guidance to public bodies on the Open Meetings Act, during the COVID-19 pandemic, dated July 2nd, 2020, county board members may participate without being physically present in compliance with the established provisions. We do have a quorum in the room this morning, though, so I'm glad to have that. Just briefly, I'm going to keep my remarks short this morning, but the one thing that I saw over the last couple of days that I thought was worthy of remarks was that in one of the posts I saw is that buckthorn is now the #1 tree, and that's a terrible thing for our environment. So if you have buckthorn in your yard, go home and cut it down and be very careful about how you cut that down. Paint it with a little bit of full strength weed killer right away, or you'll have a shrub in no time. It's been a battle for me for 30 years now, so go cut down your buckthorn. Next on our agenda, we have an update from our U.S. Senator Dick Durbin's environmental policy team. And I have Catherine Clark and Andrew Poske, or Carissa, who will be speaking this morning. I'd like to recognize you.
Good morning. Yes, my name is Carissa. I'm with the Senator's Chicago team, so I'm here based in Illinois locally, and I am being assisted by my colleagues who are the experts that will be speaking with you guys today. And hopefully, if you have any more local questions, I'll be here to answer them. But I'll be passing the torch along over to Catherine and Andrew.
Excellent. Thank you so much, and welcome all of you this morning. We're so happy to have you here to share with us the Senator's ideas on environment. So actually, you can go ahead and start and let us hear what the plan is.
Well, hello, everybody. I'm Andrew Poske. I work on the Senator's Energy and Environment portfolio as a legislative aide. So we handle pretty much everything under the sun here, from climate change to hazardous pollutants, a lot of water issues, conservation. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different issues that we touch on as staff. And the Senator, I think, I mean, he likes to be involved in a number of ways in a number of different issue areas. And I think we could talk about any number of those things. So it might help if there was, a particular starting point that you all wanted to get into, if a certain issue, rather than something as broad as environment. If you had any particular questions you want to kick it off with, that would be helpful for us. We can start wherever you like. I would like to note also that I am a DuPage native myself, from Glen Ellyn, Illinois, proud Gilmard West grad. And also I spent a whole summer clearing buckthorn, so I understand that issue for sure.
Welcome, man. Welcome. I know it's the nastiest stuff. Well, I'm not sure if anybody has any questions, please feel free. But we have received okay, if you could give us an overview, go back here a second. My lovely assistant Joy is telling me that if you could give us a quick overview on the Senator's proposed America's Clean Future Fund Act and the Climate Change Resiliency Fund for America Act.
That sounds great. I'll kick it over to Catherine here to kind of talk about the first one there.
Lovely. Thanks, Andrew. Hi, it's nice to meet everyone. Happy to be here today. I work with Andrew in DC on the E&E team, and I'm a Science and Technology Policy Fellow this year in Senator Durbin's office. So I can give a quick overview of the Senator's America's Clean Future Fund Act. This bill, which we reintroduced already this Congress, is a really comprehensive bill to tackle climate change, create new jobs, and support a just transition to a new clean energy economy. and it does this in several ways. A key feature of this bill is a Climate Change Finance Corporation, which is sort of similar to a green bank. And this would finance projects through either grants or loans and through a variety of things. So this could be clean energy projects, could be transportation, climate adaptation, as well as research, development, and deployment for technologies to tackle climate change. And for this finance corporation, priority is given to environmental justice communities, deindustrialized communities, and those most at risk from the impacts of climate change, with at least 40% of the grant funds being directed to those communities. And in addition to this finance corporation, the bill would have transition assistance for communities transitioning away from fossil fuels. It would have payments for carbon capture, utilization, and sequestration activities. And it would also have support for farmers to engage in practices to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. These provisions in this bill are primarily funded through a carbon fee, and 75% of that carbon fee would be given back to low and middle income Americans as dividend payments to protect consumers. So that's sort of a high level overview of this comprehensive bill. I'm happy to ask questions or to answer questions now, or I can pass it back to Andrew to give an overview of the other piece of legislation you mentioned.
Thank you, Catherine. Andrew, you want to kick it off to the next?
Happy to.
There.
So the other of the two, I would say, main climate bills that the senators engage with here is the Climate Change Resiliency Fund for America Act. And the idea behind this bill originally is the senator wanted to model some of the war bond efforts that you saw in World War II to fund the war efforts there, to create a similar program to fight climate change, specifically on the resiliency end of this. And so the way it works is the Treasury Department, if this was enacted, would be able to issue start up to $200 million in state, local tax exempt climate bonds. And then if we exceed in sales that 200 million, then it can get up to $1 billion annually for these climate bond sales. And those sales, then the funds raised by them would go directly towards climate change resiliency projects. So where Catherine's talking a lot about buildup of clean energy infrastructure and reducing carbon emissions and kind of stepping into this next generation economy, this bill is more on the resiliency end, where it's about preparing for the effects of climate change that in a lot of cases communities are already experiencing across the board here. And so some of this is kind of the real-time fight, and then other parts of it are preparing for whatever the next big disaster might be. And so these climate bond sales, the funds raised then could be reissued as grants to all kinds of different groups. They could go to, I have a list here I can read off of. So it could go to federal, state, local governments, utilities, tribes, transit groups, nonprofits, coalitions. I mean, basically everyone around has a chance to kind of get a stake of this money here, so that they can build up new kinds of infrastructure and resiliency in their communities to, say, better prepare for, let's say, flooding is a great example. And then a big one that affects Illinois here, where flooding has become more frequent because of climate change and can be extremely detrimental to communities, especially the ones that are super unprepared. And so here's an opportunity with these funds raised to channel that money back into communities that are suffering the kind of worst effects of climate change. And similar to what Catherine was saying about the prioritization being for low-income environmental justice communities, generally communities that have historically been disenfranchised and historically have been at the front lines of this kind of impact of climate change. The same is true here, where we've put in that same 40% prioritization for the funding here, so that if as we raise this money, it goes to the most vulnerable places first, and whoever's administering the funds, the commission that this establishes, is always keeping them in mind and engaging with the stakeholders who are really these frontline communities dealing with these effects first and foremost. that's another broad overview here, I think, of the bill. We're happy to take questions. The senator's got a number of other bills that I think in more indirect ways kind of tackle climate change. But these are the two big ones, I think, that are about mitigating the effects. And then the one Catherine mentioned on the Clean Future Fund there is more about reducing emissions and then building up this kind of next generation low carbon or zero carbon economy.
Great. A couple of questions in the room. Member Chaplin.
Thanks so much. Thanks both of you for being here. My question is, how does Senator Durbin's plan differ from the carbon fee and dividend bill that has been introduced by, what was the guy's name? Ted Deutsch or Deutsch, and I'm from Florida. Is there a difference in his plan, or did the senator sign on to this, or?
Is that the Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act, I believe, is that one?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I can start, and Andrew or others please hop in. So I think Senator Durbin's bill is more comprehensive in the sense that it has several other pieces in addition to the carbon fee and dividend portion. So it has, the Climate Finance Corporation, which I mentioned. It has these, it really has a robust section on agriculture to engage farmers, forestry sector in this work. And so I would say it has the carbon fee and dividend as a way to sort of support and fund these programs, but there's many other elements in Senator Durbin's bill that sort of help this transition in addition to the carbon fee.
The thing I'll add on to that there is that there's a number of these different carbon fee based proposals that are kind of floating around the House and the Senate here. The Energy Innovation and Carbon Dividend Act is just one of them, and one that received a lot of support in the House in the last Congress. And Senator Durbin's position, because you asked if he had signed on to this, no, he's not a co-sponsor on a Senate version. I'm not sure there was a Senate version, but his philosophy around climate has always been that this is such a massive, it's a global comprehensive problem. And so it needs not just one solution, not just one silver bullet, oh, my bill is going to fix the whole thing, because it's such a big problem. And so if there's an avenue, if there's an opportunity to push for something similar or for any number of other strategies, like say this bill you're talking about here, if there's an avenue for that to, hit the Senate floor and then eventually make it to the president's desk, then I think he would certainly be open to supporting it, along with a number of other climate strategies. But he sees his bills and the America's Clean Future Fund Act in particular as a great starting point and just another idea to kind of put out into the world of climate legislation here, so we can have a starting point to start tackling some of these things.
You got a follow-up, Liz?
Yeah, so thank you both so much. I think we've had our local citizens climate lobby in here talking about the tax dividend legislation. So that's why I asked how it compared. Would there be any way possible that you guys could send us like a summary of the legislation or the bills or his ideas, or a link to the bill itself? I think that'd be really great for us to have, just to take a look at it too, and see if it's something that we want to consider.
Yeah, that's no problem. We can send you guys all a one-pager and then the text of the actual bills.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Great suggestion, Member Chaplin. Member DeCiani.
Thank you, Chairwoman Rutledge. Adam, thank you for your time this morning, and thank our Senator for helping us and thinking about stormwater and climate change, and they are hand in hand. Senator Durbin was out in Elmhurst back in 2010 with me back then as mayor, helping us get a FEMA declaration. We had two 100-year floods within 2 months of each other. And he was great in coming to DuPage County to see that we were able to help our residents rebuild. With that said, and this bill, directing a lot of its funds towards stormwater, you mentioned lower income communities. So I have a lot of those in my district. Villa Park, for instance, qualifies for a lot of the CDBG money to help rebuild. Would we see these funds coming through CDBG, or what's that going to look like as far as funding? How would that? What would be the mechanism to get the dollars to our local communities?
Do you mean for the Climate Change Resiliency Fund for America? Okay. So once the bond program is established and operated via Treasury and Commerce, the funds themselves will be administered through grants and those grants are distributed by a commission that the bill establishes, which is a whole host of people. I don't remember how many members we decide. I think it's 11 folks end up getting put on the commission. And anyway, so then as applications roll in from, say, a local government or a state government, they determine where the need can be most targeted with that 40% prioritization in mind, and then administer those grants accordingly. Catherine, you can jump in if I'm missing any important details here.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. There isn't a single mechanism in either of these bills actually laid out in order to be flexible and accommodate the needs of different communities. And so we established there's a board of directors for the Finance Corporation, what Andrew just described for the climate bonds legislation, in order to get that input from community and make those decisions in order to make sure the funds get there. So we sort of built it as a way to be flexible and to really get that feedback and input from people on the front lines and on the ground who know the situation.
And
so go ahead.
As a follow-up, would private companies, like I have a client right now that's looking to put solar in, and he's wondering if there's any incentives right now to do that. He's a large car dealer in Elmhurst, and he's looking to try to capitalize on solar. And right now, I really don't have a whole lot of incentives for him. I'm trying to maybe possibly look at our PACE program that we have, where he can take this financing out for a longer period of time. But these might be projects that might qualify for this if it's open to private as well. Would that be the case, or is it strictly local governments?
I think that'd be more for Clean Future Fund, Catherine, for a clean energy project like that. But I imagine they could apply, right, Catherine? Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Yeah, I think so. Through the list of eligible entities again. Oops, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. My computer says I'm muted, but I'm not, so it's confusing. Yeah, I think, part of the point of the green bank type structure in this finance corporation is to encourage private investment and private capital along with, the federal government. And so I think that's sort of part of the idea behind this type of structure. There's, obviously many other types of credits, investment tax credits or production tax credits that are applicable to renewable energy projects. And so I think typically that's sort of how people think of those things. But yeah, I see this as sort of maybe a parallel or other structure that could sort of fit in with those other types of incentives that exist.
Great, thank you. And lastly, Andrew, are you related to Nick by chance, Nick Posgay?
Nick, my brother, Nick, my father, or Nick, my grandfather? Because the answer is yes.
He's a state champion wrestler from Glenbard West. Is that your father?
Thanks for getting together there, Pete. I'm going to move along. They have a conference call that we have to get them to.
Sorry.
We still have some questions in the room, but you guys can connect later on. Member LaPlante.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman, and go Hilltoppers. My question is about when you were talking, can you speak more to prioritizing the vulnerable communities? Now, does that mean socioeconomically? Does that mean most vulnerable to climate change that have already been feeling the effects of climate change? Can you speak a little bit more to that, please?
I think it's both. I mean, historically, you'll see that communities of color, low-income communities, these environmental justice communities, as we often frequently refer to them as, are in locations and have been in places and neighborhoods that are on the front end of these impacts of climate change by location alone. It's just the way these impacts shake out. It's a really common thing, and so I think there's very often a nexus between or an intersecting point here between the already challenging realities of lower socioeconomic issues and climate change. I mean, they go hand in hand. And so the prioritization and Catherine, you can speak more to this, I think, too, about on the environmental justice end, but prioritization has always been about carving out significant funding from the start, rather than thinking of this as an afterthought, especially for communities that struggle to, say, have a cost match with the federal government, who is, offering this kind of money. But if you're a low-income community, maybe your town can't afford to make that match. And so what we've done with both bills here is ensure that there's some kind of a waiver component where the secretary, in this case, Secretary of Commerce for the Climate Change Resiliency Fund, has the opportunity to waive some of that matching requirement so that these more vulnerable communities, both socioeconomically and vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, have the opportunity to still, cash in on some of these funds and get these projects where they're most needed.
Okay, and what about the future, the communities that are about to be impacted from things such as climate migration, meaning people leaving these communities that are so heavily impacted, and that's unfortunately not too far away. Is that part of, have you addressed that or have a plan for that in this bill?
That's an excellent question. I don't think either of these bills are really tackling climate migration necessarily, but it's certainly an issue that's on the senator's mind, especially now that he's chairman of the Judiciary Committee here. Immigration has been an issue for him that's kind of been at the core of his work, I think, for most of his career here. And you're right, climate migration, we're about to see, if the projections are right here, potentially hundreds of millions of people moving around the globe because of these impacts from climate change. And so while neither of these two bills specifically try and address that problem, I know that there's a litany of issues in the immigration and migration space here that he's certainly considering, and this is one of them that's on the brain, I would say.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew and Lynn. Member Chavez.
Sorry, my question got answered in the process, so thank you, though.
Thank you. Well, my question is about the timeline. When can we expect some legislation to finally bubble up to the top of these competing bills and start delivering, aid to the people that are impacted by this?
That's the $1 million question, I think, here. I think that there's a lot of pressure from a lot of different angles here that's kind of coming down on the House, on the Senate, and onto the White House here. But I think that Senator Durbin, if you were here, would say that this is a unique opportunity here as we're kind of diving into these big conversations, these big legislative conversations about climate and about infrastructure. And about implementing things like the American Jobs Plan that President Biden has put out. This is it's a unique opportunity here where we have the chance to really kind of do something big. And so I hesitate to give you a firm timeline because I'm still waiting for the majority leader to tell us when we will be voting on climate. But I would say that it is one of the issues that is at the forefront right now, and it's something that's being considered across the board, House, Senate, and the White House, and it's getting a lot of attention. And the hope is we can do something pretty legitimate here in the coming year or years. But again, I hesitate to give any kind of promises of a timeline.
I like putting people on the hot seat, and what can we do from our position here and the citizens, and give us some, oh my God, today I got 10 phone calls, and that really helps kind of push people, or something that you think really helps the process from our end of things.
That's a good question. I think we're not necessarily in the business of rallying people to call their offices, although you're of course welcome to call us and put some more pressure on, and encourage folks in your communities to do the same. And I think that's what the big thing is keeping up these conversations, keeping this, like we're keeping it in the front of our heads here as much as possible, whether it's, haranguing your local leaders and representatives, keeping it in your mind for all of you, thinking about how you all can implement similar policies, similar ideas at the more local level here. Those things are all useful because this is, I think, a whole of government solution is required to really start to tackle some of these things. So I don't know that I have specific action items for all of you, but certainly I think keep thinking about these things, keep exploring policy ideas, and figure out what works best, and clear buckthorn. That's a big one.
Yeah, and clear buckthorn.
And maybe Carissa could speak more to this as well too.
No, yeah, I just wanted to follow up with what Andrew shared. Thank you for giving us or giving my colleagues the opportunity to talk a little bit more about the senator's the work that he's committing on climate change. I think Illinoisans are very lucky that he's sort of leading the efforts on this front. So thank you to my colleagues, Andrew and Catherine, for sharing some of that information. I think locally here for our Illinois office, please be in touch with me if you have any follow-up questions. I'm happy to share the one-pagers on the legislation with Joy. And then she could pass that around to the rest of the committee. And like Andrew shared, having these discussions is what's some of the best ways to keep the conversation going. So thank you for your time and letting us share what the senator's working on climate change. He's working on a lot of things, so it's nice to kind of divert to something that we don't really get to talk about much, especially me being here in the Chicago office. So thank you so much. If you have any questions, please reach out to us, and have a good rest of your week, everyone.
Thank you, Carissa, Andrew, and Catherine for taking time out to speak with us this morning. It gives us a bigger picture about the things that we'll want to support as a county. And so I appreciate the time you gave us this morning. Does anybody else have any questions before they move on to their next call? Great. Thank you again for coming this morning. I appreciate your time.
Great to meet everybody.
All righty, let's, do we have any public comment, Joy? Okay, no public comment. Next, I'll move for the approval of minutes from Tuesday, April 6, 2021. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Oh, that feels so good. Next, we have a couple items for discussion. The first is Senate Bill 1676, the Solid Waste Planning and Recycling Act Amendment. Joe, you want to give us a little bit of history on that? And
absolutely. This bill was introduced to the Senate, and what it does is it changes the requirement for the county as far as our solid waste plan goes. We would have to address multifamily recycling of apartments, buildings that are 4 units and larger. And then on top of that, it does incorporate the county by using, and we're trying to get some clarification. But the phrase is, shall ensure that owners of apartment buildings containing 4 or more rental units ensure that recycling receptacles are available to tenants and that recyclables are collected. So we're trying to get some clarification. As you all know, we have control over unincorporated areas, but not incorporated areas. The solid waste plan incorporates the entire county. So it covers everything. So we are trying to find out what exactly this is going to ask the county to do. Trying to identify and require every rental unit at 4 and above in the county is going to be a significant task, if that's what the intention of the bill is. We have heard that the senator may pull it and have some stakeholder meetings this summer. However, we don't know for sure. That is the Illinois Counties Association explained that to us, but again, an amendment was filed on the same day, so we're not entirely sure what's going on.
right, well, we'll watch that as it moves through. And the other bill is, did anybody have any questions on that one? I'm so sorry. Then the other bill is Senate Bill 590, the Safe Pharmaceutical Disposal Act Amendment. Sharps.
Sure. And this adds the term sharps into this legislation. It does add the term shall, which means that every 102 counties in the state of Illinois will have to provide either a medicine collection or a sharps collection at their county complex. We're not entirely sure. We're hoping that the sheriff's collection will cover DuPage because he is collecting the medicines as part of the RX Box program, and he has recently started with the sharps as well. So we may be covered. Having said that, the Illinois EPA may or may not have funds to cover 102 collections throughout the state of Illinois. Those funds being diverted to this might be problematic to the county and what we receive from the agency. In addition to that, there is a an effort, a nationwide, worldwide effort to really put financing of waste collection on manufacturers. So while we aren't necessarily opposing the bill, we'd like a different funding mechanism than it to fall to the counties and to the state. We'd like the manufacturers of the sharps or the big pharma to really be funding these collections. So that's the discussions that we've been having on that bill.
Any questions?
I have a quick question. Doesn't this include municipalities in that statute?
It says may.
Okay,
Municipalities got a
that's not
may, we got a shall.
Fine.
And how likely do you think it will be for the big pharma to step up and cover this?
It has happened in California. Having said that, it's hard. It is a big lift. Chicago did it a couple of years ago, and they still have yet to have their program really up and going and funded by the manufacturers. They're currently collecting and taking to, kind of on their own dime. So it's not an easy lift.
Okay. There is precedent,
There is, correct.
but only seems on the West Coast then. So we'd have to really that would be innovative, wouldn't it?
It would be, and there actually is, and I don't have the bill numbers, but there are other bills that have been introduced at the state level to get pharma to pay for some of these collections, specific to medicine, not to sharps. So it is being introduced, it's just not making it through.
Okay.
Any other questions, anybody? All righty, the last item for discussion is I was asked by a couple people to consider an event for recycling campaign signs. So we have that set up for the 14th and the 15th of May. We're going to have dumpsters over here at the fairgrounds, and I will send a flyer out to you. Thank you, Joy, for putting that together. I'm pretty good on volunteers so far too, because Lakeshore Recycling has agreed to do this, provided we do a better job of sorting things for them. So we want to make sure that we get it right this time so that they'll be willing to do it in the future. So next we have a presentation from our educational partners at Scares. You there, Kay?
Uh-oh, that's a nice picture of you.
Thanks. Hello, Kay or Bev, I saw. Are they on?
I'm here.
Oh, good, thank you.
Hi.
Good morning.
Hey guys, really quick. So there we are at Wooddale's Earth Flag ceremony. The city of Wooddale did just so many great projects, and last month we didn't have the picture, so I just wanted to show that to you. Joy, can you go to the next slide? These were the April education programs. We were incredibly busy in April. March and April have just been really big. A lot of people have really learned how to use Zoom. They are very much more comfortable with Zoom and webinars. So the numbers have really been going up with the requests as well as the programs. This is our education center. And you can see that some of the groups now are coming to preview our center to make sure it is socially distanced. You can see each of these daisies has their own table, their own supplies for learning how to make recycled paper. So people are feeling very comfortable. It has its own entrance to our center, and it has really big doors for fresh air. So a lot more people are feeling comfortable with coming out to some limited number of people in the same space, but coming out to programs. Go ahead, Joy. The Green Ribbon School. So this is our third National Green Ribbon School in DuPage County. Monroe in Hinsdale was first. Marker School in Marker School in Westmont was first. Monroe was second. And Wheaton Christian now is the third. Western Trail Elementary and Carroll Stream, they were a state finalist. We are very, very proud of all of these schools. All of these schools have earned our Earth Flag, and all of these schools have been working on their all of these schools have earned their water quality flag as well. So very, very exciting. This school, you guys, was the first school in DuPage County to have geothermal. And now we have the preschool early childhood center in Wheaton Jefferson School with the second geothermal school. So very, very comprehensive programs for these schools to earn the National Green Ribbon School and good for DuPage County. Go ahead. So the April recycling events, you know that people are cleaning out at home. They've had more time to clean out. And so the numbers are quite extraordinary. Wheaton's event, April 10th, we know there were more than 900 cars. Cars were backed up everywhere. We're looking for a bigger site for next year. But 71,305 pounds collected in 3.5 hours. Sheila was there. It was an enormous, enormous event. Addison had their second event. We did an event with them in November and now in April. So in less than 6 months, you guys, we've handled almost 1,000 cars, and Addison's are limited to Addison residents. So that's an extraordinary participation rate for Addison. We are thrilled. Glendale Heights also, I just got their numbers. Their numbers are usually about 125 people, participants, and this year they had 359 cars. So triple their numbers. That is amazing. Walker School, this is their first one at Walker School. So they had 50 something cars, and they are anxious to do it again. Schaumburg handles theirs their own, but you know, DuPage County, part of Schaumburg is in DuPage County. So these were a lot of events in just 1 month. And go ahead. So Bensenville received the Governor's Hometown Award. We were thrilled. We have been working with Bensenville for quite a while. I was able to get a grant to buy them their medicine collection bin from eScript many years ago. They participate now in the Pumpkin Smash, the Holiday Light, the cooking oil through a grant from the DuPage Foundation that bought their toter. I know they've been working on energy stuff. This town is really buzzing with moving ahead on the environment in many different levels or ways. Go ahead, Joy. The Carroll Stream Rotary and the Carroll Stream School District had students that needed desks at home during this pandemic time. So the Rotary made desks, and we were lucky to help them with, we had 28 chairs from another school district. So school districts bring us things they don't need or tell us that they have stuff they no longer need. And then we were able to match it up right within our own county, saves taxpayers money, gets the chairs reused. And we were just thrilled, you guys. We just received notice that we were chosen to give a presentation to the Illinois Association of School Business Officials, June 9th. It is a accredited kind of program for school business officials. So you have to be invited to suggest a program. So we were invited this past January to suggest a presentation. We gave them a draft of what we would do, and we just received notice that we've been chosen as one of the programs to present. It'll be in person on June 9th, and we're lucky it's right in Schaumburg. But these are the kinds of things that they were interested in, reusing, and of course, saving taxpayers money. Go ahead, Joy. So we had our Growing Green Garden Market this past Saturday. Yes, it was very windy. We were a little nervous, 1 with COVID, 2, we have a new location, and 3, it was very, very windy, but we had, from what we were able to count, 416 people attend. Sheila was there, Jim Zay was there. We sold over 120 trees, native trees. We had native shrubs, grasses. We had quite a few vendors. We had some projects for kids to do. We had mini workshops on composting, chickens, native plants. So the workshops were a little worrisome. People were worried about being inside, but the composting one had the most people attend, so that was really good. And we worked a lot with several teachers who came to learn more about community gardens at their schools. I think schools are interested in that because they're going to be able to have their students outside more often. That's going to be a more comfortable learning environment. So a lot of teachers stopped in to learn about community gardens and pollinator gardens. Go ahead, Joy. So we have a backyard composting workshop coming up this Friday. You guys, this is International Composting Week, and we are very excited to offer another workshop on that. That'll be just 2 in 1 week's time. Composting is really catching on to a lot more folks, as Westmont and Warrenville have now joined us at Curbside. So we're excited about that. Go ahead. So these are the upcoming events that we are helping with, the Itasca, Woodridge, and Warrenville events this coming Saturday. We also have the Wayne Township Electronics this Saturday. Villa Park is coming up and they always have an extraordinary program. West Chicago's paper shredding. There's a lot of good events coming up. One of the things that we're working on to add to these events or to do a separate event is battery recycling. We had another fire in Lombard in a hauler's truck. And many times they are believing this has to do with batteries. So we are working with a company in Addison called HasChem to sponsor some sort of a drop-off, a fee-based drop-off of batteries, possibly a Friday and a Saturday type event, and have those hauled away the following Monday. But we are working on that and it being fee-based. We get probably one of the most questions we get here at Scarce, and then also at these events, people bring batteries and want to know where they can take batteries. So it's hard to get those recycled, all those alkaline batteries, and it's expensive. They're heavy to send to a landfill. And those fires, both at recycling facilities, recycling trucks, garbage trucks, and landfills are on the increase. So we are working on that. I wanted to mention, you guys were talking about sharps. So the sheriff and I have now done 4 sharps collections. We have some good programs here in DuPage County. The DuPage Foundation gave us a grant and we started the Glenside Fire District in Glendale Heights with syringe recycling, I don't know, 5 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that. And the sheriff's been taking on, he has a big collection bin, but he's also come to community events to get more education about that sharps and EpiPen should not go into the landfill or into recycling. We are anxious to help with in any way. I know we've been working with the Illinois Environmental Council on the sharps. 1 in 12 homes has sharps. So it is a very large problem for the residents and for the environment and for the haulers and the recycling facility. So we are anxious to work on that. Joe, I'm not sure if there's another slide, sorry. Thanks, guys. I don't know if anybody has any questions, but I'd be happy to answer them, and hope that you can take, Jim Zay talked about our green fair this past Saturday and said he hopes people will come and see our new facility. There is a lot to see here, and we'd like to help rescue more supplies so we can help keep them out of the landfill, reduce our carbon footprint, right? We're anxious to do that. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Kay. And again, a big thank you to all you do in our communities to keep our environment, things out of the landfill and all that you do. You do so much. Next, is there anybody that has any old business? Liz.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I had to go to golf course and I'm back. But I just wanted to comment on the sign recycling because I didn't hear the comments, but thank you for putting that together. I know I had some constituents reach out, so I appreciate all your efforts in that and getting that done.
Let's cross our fingers and hope that we can get the word out enough to make it worth everybody's while so we can continue to do this going forward.
Would that be that, are we going to try to do that like each election cycle maybe?
I'd like to do that after each election cycle.
In my conversation with Lakeshore, as long as they are getting the quantity, the clean signs, the quantity, and then the other caveat is there is one facility that will take the corrugated plastic and recycle it, and that's in Blue Island.
Okay.
So as long as Blue Island is taking it, we give them a clean stream, we give them the quantity they need. Yes, we can do it. The other aspect of that is to lower their costs in the future. If one of those elements doesn't happen, we might be able to offer it at their facility in West Chicago just to keep their costs low, so that they don't have to bring out a roll-off box and it's close to their facility. So I mean, we're talking about it. Hopefully, as long as we can give them what they're looking for, we should be able to.
Great, thanks so much. Thank you.
And I had kind of hoped for something a little more centrally located, but the fairgrounds was easy access and agreeable. So so we'll see how that goes. Next, any new business?
I have a question or a suggestion. Do you think that we could have all of these wonderful environmental events? Do you think we could have them sort of put together and emailed to the environmental committee so we have would be an easier way to share them with our constituents?
Yes, we could do that. However, you could also direct them to our website. We have a recycling upcoming events page on our website where we list everything that
Right.
we are notified about. And,
Right.
and unfortunately, there are times where we don't get notification. They don't
Okay.
tell the county, they'll tell Kay, but they don't tell us. So it doesn't get on our website.
Yeah, like there's
Um,
just, it's coming from a few different places. And I was wondering if we could have like a central,
It would be wonderful. And
Dissemination.
yes, to your point, yes. If people could just send it to us, we would love to have that all on our website. Yes.
okay, so send
We
it
can
to
do both.
you
Yep.
if we have something,
Yep,
and
yeah.
then
Yeah.
you'll send it out to, that would be awesome.
Yeah, you could give us
Okay.
like a monthly.
Sure.
Okay, here.
Or
that
just
would
go
be
to the, or
fantastic.
just go to the page. You can
Yeah.
just, it would
Yeah.
be probably easier for staff if we just go to their page.
Mhm.
You
Send
provide
us
them with the
links.
information,
Yeah.
they put it on their page, then you put out the link to their page.
You do it once.
Instead of having staff do an extra step for us. I mean, yeah, I think it would be easier if we had,
I mean, we
give
can,
our information to Joy.
we can work on both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
then-
either way.
Thank
The
you
page is
so
full,
much.
the page is full of
Appreciate
great,
that.
all kinds of events, and it's easy to just share the link with your constituents, yeah.
Especially this time of year where the focus is everybody's cleaning up, recycling, doing a lot of those things. So good to have those links to pass along. Any new business? All right, seeing none, hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.